Forward to the second edition, The End of Certainty. An accession event marks the point where a sudden shift redefines success in a market. That, dear reader, is the cornerstone thesis of this book. It's about how these seismic shifts happen, what fuels them, and how to turn them into golden opportunities. Think of it as your treasure map for navigating the chaos. Back in late 2014 and early 2015, while stitching together the first edition of this tome, it was becoming abundantly clear that accession events weren't just reshaping the business world at an almost comedic pace, but they were also shaking politics and society to their very cores. While this book primarily unpacks the business implications of these events, the foreword for this second edition compels me to briefly step into the societal fray. Not unlike an Englishman stepping onto American soil with one eyebrow skeptically raised. As an Englishman in the United States during the Brexit debates and the roller coaster ride of the US election cycles, I had a front row seat to the drama, popcorn not included. It became strikingly obvious that the old left-right political dichotomy was losing its luster. Instead, new battle lines were forming around two visions of society: inward-looking nativism versus outward-looking globalism. The new war isn't red versus blue. It's insular versus interconnected. Of course, political upheavals don't just spring up like weeds. They're the delayed consequences of accession events that have been quietly brewing over decades. The deindustrialization of Western economies has left many livelihoods effectively evaporated, creating fertile ground for discontent. Enter the populists with their siren song of nostalgia, promises of a return to a mythical golden age of blue-collar jobs, unchallenged by foreigners or globalization. It's a pitch as soothing as a lullaby, and just as far from reality. For those caught off guard by technological changes, reinvention can feel impossible. Populist politicians prey on this fear, peddling an alluring fantasy that the future's uncertainties can be dodged by retreating to an idealized past. But let's be clear, technology doesn't come with a reverse button. Once the genie's out, it doesn't politely climb back into the bottle. The danger lies in society's willingness to buy into these nostalgic promises. If we're seduced by nationalism and populism, we risk stalling progress. But if our institutions rise to the challenge, helping those displaced by rapid change rather than abandoning them, then the accelerating pace of innovation could usher in a new era of prosperity. The stakes are high. If the strong men prevail, those bullies and demagogues peddling fantasies of rewinding the clock, the world could be in for a rough ride. My prediction, a mix of both outcomes. Some nations have already succumbed to this retrograde pull, and it's a tragedy for them. But if the United States or Europe were to follow suit, the consequences would be catastrophic on a global scale. Originally, this book was conceived as a field guide to navigating accession events and maximizing business opportunities. But in 2024, it feels like something more, a toolkit for resisting the lure of demagoguery and building a future that embraces change rather than retreating to an imaginary past. Let's use it wisely. Chapter 1, Introduction, Reinventing the Wheel. In 1890, my great-grandparents operated a successful cart-making business in Islington, North London. At the heart of their enterprise was the craft of building wooden wheels, which accounted for 80% of the production cost of each cart. Precision was critical. A wheel had to be perfectly round and the axle set dead center. Anything less would result in customers wobbling down the road, an outcome that could ruin the business. Despite these challenges, my great-grandparents excelled in their craft. Their workshop became the preferred source for industrial-style carts, catering to diverse clients, including rag-and-bone men and milk delivery services. This thriving market brought prosperity to the family. At one point, they amassed wealth equivalent to over £1 million today,
which they kept at home. During a particularly extravagant family wedding, a bread basket was filled to the brim with white fivers, £5 notes, the size of modern letter paper.
However, a historic shift transformed their fortunes. Henry Ford introduced the Model T, and the automobile era began. Others soon followed, developing their own vehicles. Customers who once relied on horse-drawn carts started purchasing trucks and cars. Despite their expertise, my family's wooden wheels had no place in this new world. Within a decade, demand for wooden wheels plummeted, prices dropped, and the family business began to unravel. By 1930, only 15 years after their peak, the business had collapsed entirely. The family, once affluent, faced severe poverty in King's Cross, London. They resorted to selling furniture to afford meals. Their dire circumstances only improved with the full employment brought by World War II. This family story illustrates a broader phenomenon in business, how market-shifting innovations, what I term accession events, can swiftly render even the most successful enterprises obsolete. These events often pass unnoticed by those unaffected, yet their consequences are profound. Awareness of such changes is critical to adapting and capitalizing on new opportunities.
In hindsight, my great-grandparents could have recognized the automobile's potential and sold their business at its peak value. With that wealth, they could have pursued other ventures. The family wedding where white fivers overflowed from a breadbasket. That money could have purchased 20 houses in central London or provided seed capital for a new enterprise. A modern parallel to this story lies in the evolution of mobile phones. In 2000, the Motorola Razr flip phone epitomized success in the mobile phone market. Compact, stylish, and robust, it was the most popular phone of its time, with over 450 million units sold. Its design represented the pinnacle of mobile innovation, emphasizing portability, battery life, and durability. Now imagine traveling back to 2000 and presenting someone with a smartphone from 2015. What would they expect? Likely, they would envision a smaller, sleeker device with a month-long battery life and unparalleled toughness. Instead, the reality would confound them. The best-selling smartphone of 2015, the iPhone, was significantly larger than the Razr, had a battery life barely lasting a day, and was far more fragile, requiring costly repairs if dropped.
At first glance, these characteristics might seem like regressions. However, the iPhone redefined what a mobile phone could be. It transformed phones into mini supercomputers, with voice communication becoming just one of many features. By shifting the criteria for success, Apple rendered flip phones obsolete, much like the Model T did to horse-drawn carts. Accession events fundamentally alter the definition of success within a market. These shifts create opportunities for those who recognize and adapt to them, while posing existential threats to those who do not. Whether it's wooden wheels or flip phones, the lesson is clear. To thrive in a dynamic marketplace, businesses must anticipate and respond to these transformative changes. The societal impact of accession events.
Accession events do not only revolutionize technology, they reshape the very fabric of society. Reflecting on my early career in 1986, I sold devices like fax machines, dictation equipment, typewriters, and word processors. These tools were at the forefront of a significant shift. Back then, typewriters were essential tools, with some models costing the equivalent of $1,500 to $5,000 today. Word processors, while a step forward, were far from intuitive or affordable. These devices, typically paired with typewriters, had 9-inch displays and used floppy disks holding just 76K of data. They operated through command codes, requiring highly trained typists to navigate their complexities. Once satisfied with their work, these typists would print letters at a painstaking 12 characters per second using daisy wheel printers. By today's standards, these machines were rudimentary, but at the time, they were groundbreaking. The cost of such word processors ranged from $15,000 to $25,000 in today's money, limiting their use to professional typists working in organizations willing to invest heavily. These typists, capable of typing 70 to 95 words per minute, were unparalleled in their efficiency and accuracy. However, this highly specialized skill set became less relevant as personal computers, PCs, entered the market. By the early 1990s, PCs cost between $5,000 and $7,000 and offered far greater versatility. The launch of Microsoft Office in 1991 with its crown jewel, Word, marked a turning point. Microsoft Word simplified word processing. Its graphical interface allowed users to format text intuitively with just a click. Unlike earlier systems, Word was accessible to non-specialists, enabling anyone to produce documents without extensive training. This shift represented an accession event that fundamentally redefined success in the word processor market. It was no longer about professional typists producing flawless work at high speed. Success now meant empowering everyone to create their own documents.
The broader societal impact.
The ripple effects of Word and its counterparts extended far beyond the workplace. Entire professions, such as secretaries and typists, saw their roles diminished or transformed. In the late 1980s, a visit to a local insurance office might reveal rows of typists working under a supervisor. Each typist had an in tray and an out tray, dutifully processing documents all day. By 1995, these roles had largely disappeared, replaced by PCs on every desk. This democratization of technology brought new challenges. Many employees struggled with the transition, awkwardly stabbing keyboards with one finger for years. Alongside Word, other software like Excel and PowerPoint facilitated similar transformations. For example, PowerPoint's rise decimated companies like Harvard Graphics, which had once dominated the presentation software market. Within 2 years of PowerPoint's release, Harvard Graphics' dominance evaporated. These software tools also disrupted the need for specialized skills. Spreadsheet and graphics specialists found themselves replaced by generalists using templates and pre-packaged tools. While the quantity of people creating spreadsheets and presentations increased, the quality often declined. Typing skills, too, suffered as more people took on the task without formal training. A societal transformation. The introduction of these technologies not only altered business operations but also influenced societal roles, particularly for women. As traditional secretarial roles diminished, new opportunities emerged. Women who once filled typing pools transitioned into roles with greater responsibility and visibility. This technological shift contributed to broader societal changes, empowering a generation to redefine their professional identities. Accession events, like the rise of Microsoft Office, demonstrate how technological advancements can transcend industries and reshape society. They empower individuals while simultaneously challenging traditional structures, creating a dynamic and evolving social landscape. Chapter 2, Embracing the Unexpected, a Personal Journey with Accession Events. It's improbable that I would be writing this book on accession events, or any book for that matter. My path to understanding these transformative occurrences was shaped by dyslexia, a condition that made traditional schooling an uphill battle. Yet counterintuitively, this learning difference honed my ability to anticipate and recognize accession events. As a child, my challenges were compounded by severe nearsightedness. Before the age of 5, every photograph of me shows a squinting child, oblivious to the blackboard, or anything else more than a few feet away. Teachers failed to notice this impairment, a troubling oversight in itself. By age 7, glasses improved my vision, but dyslexia remained a formidable hurdle. The school system in 1970s Southern England dismissed dyslexia as a myth,
possibly due to the country's dire financial straits at the time, austerity that left little room for addressing special educational needs. Fortunately, my parents found an independent organisation that taught me to read by age 8. This breakthrough enabled me to navigate a system that, by age 11, determined students' academic futures. Grammar schools admitted the top 20% of students, while others attended trade schools. Against the odds, I excelled in the entry exams, outperforming expectations despite my young age and perceived disadvantages. Yet, my acceptance was denied with the dismissive explanation that the grammar school was full. When my parents protested, officials threatened dire consequences, leaving us no choice but to accept my placement in a trade school.
This experience left an indelible mark on me. I watched as my mother, distraught over the injustice, confronted the system, only to be met with bullying bureaucracy. At that moment, I resolved to reject the system's authority. I realized that playing by someone else's rules often left you at their mercy. This awakening nurtured a contrarian perspective that would guide my future. A family legacy of unconventional success. While my mother struggled with the system's rigidity, my father, a self-proclaimed unqualified success, seemed unfazed. Despite lacking formal qualifications, he carved out an illustrious career. Born in 1935, my father's journey began with national service in Britain's Royal Air Force. Eschewing a conventional infantry role, he pursued radar technology, rising to the highest level of technical support during his 4 years of service. His expertise propelled him into groundbreaking work in computer-based circuit simulation and cutting-edge electronics. By the mid-1980s, he led a team of 50 top engineers tackling projects as diverse as nuclear weapon effects on electronics and advanced laser technology. Remarkably, his success was achieved without formal education. His example instilled in me a belief that qualifications alone do not define one's potential, a lesson I would carry forward. When I faced the grammar school rejection, my father's frustration with the education system reached a peak. At parent-teacher conferences, he openly challenged educators, quipping, "Those who can do, those who can't teach." He took pride in my inquisitiveness, which often clashed with traditional classroom norms. Teachers criticized me for asking too many questions, but my father saw this as a strength. From schoolyard rebellion to lifelong contrarianism, I left school at 18, disillusioned by an education system that valued compliance over curiosity. My classroom memories include watching seagulls on the field more attentively than the lessons themselves. However, this period cultivated a healthy skepticism of authority and a drive to think independently. My contrarian nature became a key asset in recognizing accession events, those pivotal moments when industries, technologies, or societal norms shift dramatically. Witnessing such events firsthand, I learned to question conventional wisdom and spot emerging patterns. Chapter 3, the historical context of accession events. To understand accession events, one must appreciate their historical inevitability. Skeptics often dismiss dramatic change as unlikely, yet history offers ample evidence to the contrary. Major upheavals, from industrial revolutions to technological breakthroughs, demonstrate that society has always been shaped by these transformative moments. Unfortunately, a common lesson from history is humanity's failure to learn from it. People often rely on linear projections, extrapolating future trends based on past contexts. Such approaches rarely account for the disruptive nature of accession events, which upend established patterns and demand a re-evaluation of what's possible. This book aims to equip readers with the tools to recognize and adapt to accession events. By understanding their historical significance and learning to question the status quo, we can navigate these changes and emerge not as victims, but as beneficiaries of inevitable progress. The transformation from horse and cart to self-driving cars. A quintessential example of an accession event is the shift from the horse and cart era
to the age of automobiles and its parallel today with self-driving cars. In 1894, cities like London and New York faced a monumental crisis: the horse manure problem. New York alone had 100,000 horses producing 250 tons of manure daily. Dead horses were frequently left to decompose on the streets because they were easier to cut up and remove after a few weeks of rot. Unsurprisingly, this led to appalling air quality and dire sanitation conditions in urban areas. Contemporary projections painted a grim picture. Analysts of the time extrapolated that by 1940, London streets would be buried under 9 feet of manure daily. This wasn't an unreasonable conclusion given the data they had. What they didn't foresee was Henry Ford's work on automating car manufacturing, which was already beginning to take shape in 1894. If someone had suggested that all horses would disappear from city streets within 40 years, they would have been dismissed as delusional. Yet, that's exactly what happened. The arrival of automobiles didn't just replace horses, it revolutionized the transportation system entirely. Early adopters initially used cars as they would horses, a direct substitution. However, the automobile quickly redefined the criteria for success in transportation, transforming urban planning, infrastructure, and societal behavior. This accession event didn't merely improve upon the status quo, it reimagined it entirely. Forgotten consequences: the disappearance of horse-centric jobs. The societal ripple effects of the automobile are often overlooked. Consider the fate of blacksmiths, livery workers, hay producers, and manure shovelers. In 1890, New York had thousands of blacksmiths. What became of them when horses vanished from the streets? These jobs, integral to the horse-driven economy, were rendered obsolete within decades. If these workers had based their future prospects solely on historical trends, they would have seen endless demand for horseshoes, hay, and manure management. Instead, they found themselves displaced by the advent of cars. This underscores a crucial lesson. History doesn't progress in a straight line. Extrapolation fails when disruptive forces like accession events rewrite the rules. The lessons of meta-history. Accession events reveal the limitations of linear thinking. History is not a predictable timeline from which we can neatly derive the future. Instead, it is punctuated by transformative moments, powerful, unpredictable X factors that upend established norms. The advent of automobiles exemplifies how these events can drive profound, unforeseen changes, reshaping industries, professions, and society as a whole. Today, we stand on the cusp of another potential accession event with self-driving cars. Much like the automobile a century ago, autonomous vehicles promise to redefine transportation and trigger wide-ranging societal changes. Recognizing the parallels between these transformative moments helps us anticipate and adapt to the inevitable disruptions that lie ahead. Navigating the risks and rewards of accession events. Accession events, if not properly managed, can lead to profound consequences. As we have seen in previous examples, they have the potential to disrupt entire industries, careers, and businesses. The foundation of your professional identity or the core premise of your business can vanish almost overnight. It is imperative to prepare for a future where the familiar may cease to exist. However, accession events also bring tremendous opportunities for those who are prepared. By understanding and applying the lessons in this book, you can position yourself to anticipate change, make decisions ahead of the curve, and leverage these shifts to your advantage. Early recognition of these events enables you to invest wisely, exit markets before they crash, retrain for new opportunities, and hedge against potential threats. Lessons from the past, adapting to change. Take, for instance, the story of my grandfather, a fur trader. In the 1970s, fur, once a symbol of luxury, became heavily stigmatized,
particularly in London. The backlash against fur escalated to the point where wearing it was seen as socially unacceptable. Recognizing this impending shift, my grandfather pivoted. He began consulting for companies producing faux fur fabric, understanding the need for realistic alternatives. His work helped improve the quality of faux fur, ensuring it could replace real fur convincingly. This adaptation allowed him to prosper, while many other furriers were forced to close their doors. A similar story can be found in the early automobile industry. Companies like Peugeot and Skoda began as bicycle manufacturers in the 1880s. Recognizing the potential of motorized vehicles, they transitioned to car production, focusing on affordable models for the average consumer. Their ability to adapt secured their positions in the market, while other companies that failed to evolve faded into obscurity. Luxury coach builders like Cadillac and Lagonda also thrived by realizing they were not merely in the business of transportation, but in providing luxury. Their success during the automobile revolution is a testament to understanding and capitalizing on changing market demands.
Preparing for accession events.
This book aims to equip you with strategies to navigate accession events. The first step is recognizing that while these events are unpredictable in form, their occurrence is inevitable. Understanding their existence is essential to anticipating and preparing for their impact. Historical patterns show that linear extrapolation is insufficient for predicting the future. Accession events are like tsunamis. Without knowledge of their existence, you wouldn't install alarms or build defenses until it was too late. The second strategy involves mitigating the risks associated with these events. By diversifying your skills, knowledge, and business ventures, you can reduce the likelihood of being completely upended by a single disruptive event. Understanding the true nature of your business and preparing for potential disruptions are key components of this approach. Finally, this book will explore how to capitalize on the upheavals brought about by accession events. By staying ahead of the curve, you can adapt more quickly than your competitors, align yourself with the new criteria for success, and position yourself to thrive. The historical record is clear. While accession events create losers, they also create far more winners over time. For instance, the decline of wheelwrights in the 1920s was followed by an explosion in demand for car mechanics, eclipsing the former profession many times over. Chapter 4: A Timeless Guide for a Rapidly Changing World. This book does not offer oracle-like predictions or one-size-fits-all solutions to eliminate risk. Instead, it provides the tools to intellectually and strategically prepare for a world filled with uncertainty. Think of it as equipping your beach with klaxons and lookout towers rather than waiting for the tide to sweep you away. The principles outlined here are timeless. Whether you are reading this in 2015 or 2115, the concepts remain relevant. And accession events have always occurred, but their frequency and impact are accelerating due to the rapid pace of innovation. Rather than a single tsunami, we now face a constant barrage of rogue waves. By preparing today, you can ensure that you and your business not only survive, but thrive in the face of the inevitable disruptions ahead. A Million Mouths: Exponential Growth and Its Impact. Although the human mind often processes events in a linear fashion, the reality of human progress is predominantly exponential. To illustrate this, consider agriculture as an analogy for societal development. The United Nations defines subsistence level, the minimum required to sustain an individual, as roughly $400 per year. It took humanity approximately 1 million years to reach a point where we could feed 1 million mouths at this level. The advent of farming around 5000 BC marked a significant accession event accelerating this growth. Farming emerged in various parts of the world simultaneously and enabled humans to feed an additional 1 million mouths at subsistence level every 200 years. a dramatic improvement from the prior million-year pace. By the post-industrial revolution era, the global economy evolved to feed another million mouths every 90 minutes. In modern food production terms, this occurs every 10 days. This exponential growth in human sustenance underscores the rapid rate at which society is advancing.
If global economic growth continues at the average rate of the past 50 years, by 2050 the world economy will be 4.8 times richer than it is today. By 2100 it could be 35 times richer. While this does not mean every individual will be proportionally wealthier, it suggests an end to poverty as we know it today and a society of unprecedented scale and resources. The pace of change in your lifetime is likely to surpass that of the last 2 millennia combined. The role of connectivity in driving exponential change. 500 years ago, most individuals lived and died within the confines of their village, rarely venturing more than a few miles from their birthplace. Education was limited to religious teachings, and the opportunity to share ideas was virtually non-existent. Today, even the most impoverished farmer is more connected than the US president was during the Reagan era. Statista predicts global cell phone users will increase from 4.4 billion in 2013 to 5.47 billion by 2018, highlighting the unprecedented connectivity of our time. This connectivity facilitates the rapid dissemination of ideas, a fundamental driver of exponential growth. Historically, great ideas were often confined to isolated villages or regions. Now, thanks to the internet and global networks, even the most obscure innovations have the potential to reach a global audience. This shift marks a fundamental change. While exceptional individuals once had to stand out in small communities, today's innovators must excel on a global stage. As competition scales globally, so does collaboration, a concept encapsulated in Metcalfe's law. Dr. Robert Metcalfe, the inventor of Ethernet, observed that the utility of a network increases proportionally to the square of its nodes. In practical terms, a network with 2 phones has a utility of 4, with 3 phones, 9, and so forth. This exponential increase in utility explains the rapid growth and influence of platforms like Facebook, which evolved from a niche social network to a global phenomenon with 1.5 billion users by 2015.
The role of converging technologies.
The exponential power of networks and global collaboration fuels the pace and impact of accession events. Historically, many transformative ideas failed to take root due to the absence of complementary technologies. Today, however, technological convergence accelerates progress. When various advancements align, they create the conditions for groundbreaking innovations. A notable example is the cell phone. Its evolution depended on a convergence of multiple technologies, from miniaturized processors to wireless communication protocols. These advancements occurred simultaneously across the globe, often leading innovators to believe they had been copied. In truth, the alignment of these technologies made certain innovations inevitable, and multiple individuals or groups simply assembled the pieces. This phenomenon illustrates a critical point. Once the necessary building blocks are in place, the emergence of transformative ideas becomes unavoidable. Linear thinking, when combined with external factors and collaborative innovation, becomes a powerful multiplier of progress. The future of accession events. The power of human networks and exponential growth ensures that accession events will not only continue, but will occur at an increasing rate. Historically, these events have arrived in waves, driven by the intersection of converging technologies. As these waves of progress reshape industries and societies, their impact becomes more profound. While our thinking remains largely linear, the forces of collaboration and technological advancement amplify our potential. As the pace of change accelerates, understanding and preparing for these accession events will be crucial to thriving in a rapidly evolving world. Chapter 5, Ideas Have Sex, Pyramids Are Born. Pyramids provide a compelling historical example of how the convergence of ideas can lead to transformative outcomes. These monumental structures appear across diverse regions, the Middle East, the coast of Japan, and South America, despite their builders never having met. The creation of pyramids illustrates the phenomenon of parallel innovation. When the right tools and technologies are available, independent societies often arrive at similar solutions. The convergence of architecture and civil engineering across different cultures and times exemplifies how ideas, when combined, can yield exponential advancements. This metaphorical mating of ideas allows for a leap in both scope and capability, demonstrating that the power of collaboration and shared innovation is not limited by geography or era. Moore's Law and the multiplication of ideas. In 1964, Gordon Moore, co-founder of Intel, famously predicted that computing power would double every 18 months to 2 years for the same cost. This assertion, known as Moore's Law, has held remarkably true from its inception to the present day. However, this phenomenon is neither obvious nor inevitable. The progress that sustains Moore's Law does not occur naturally, like a chip sprouting from a planted seed. Instead, it results from deliberate and continuous technological advancements driven by the belief in the law itself. At Intel, engineers and innovators work tirelessly to ensure Moore's Law remains accurate. Paradoxically, this adherence may also impose a limitation. By focusing on incremental advancements, such as halving the size of processors, the potential for geometric leaps in technology may be overlooked. Moore's Law gives the illusion of linear progress, but it is in reality a sequence of transformative breakthroughs. Each generation of processors is built on revolutionary changes in engineering, materials, and design.
Ideas as multipliers.
Most technological advancements refine existing concepts, building upon them in incremental ways. However, with increasing frequency, ideas intersect and multiply in revolutionary ways. These convergences, a metaphorical DNA exchange, yield exponential rather than linear progress. Metcalfe's law, which posits that the utility of a network grows at the square of its nodes, reflects this principle. When ideas multiply rather than merely add, they create innovations far greater than the sum of their parts. Waves of change and rogue ideas consider technology as an ocean, with each new idea arriving as a wave. Individually, these waves may seem modest, but collectively, they contribute to a rising tide of progress. Occasionally, conditions align to produce an outlier, a rogue wave that disrupts the status quo with the force of a tsunami. These rogue ideas represent accession events, transformative moments that redefine industries and societies. Historically, these waves of change have always occurred, but the pace is accelerating. Technology advances exponentially, fueling an increase in both the frequency and impact of accession events. The interconnectedness of our global society, powered by the internet, multiplies the likelihood of idea convergence. More people, more ideas, and more connections mean a higher probability of revolutionary innovations.
The future of idea convergence. As our global network expands, so does the opportunity for new ideas to emerge and interact. The sheer number of ideas generated grows with the population, connectivity, and technological tools available. This amplification creates fertile ground for accession events, where multiple ideas combine to produce something transformative. With each passing day, the odds of such collisions increase, propelling society into uncharted territory. Black swans, the unpredictable game changers.
When English explorers first arrived in Australia, they encountered something they had never conceived of: black swans. Until that moment, it was an unquestioned truth in the Western world that all swans were white. This discovery upended their understanding of the natural world, demonstrating how deeply entrenched beliefs can be shattered by new evidence. Once you've encountered a black swan, your perspective shifts, forcing you to reevaluate the assumptions you've held as absolute. Today, the likelihood of encountering such black swan events, highly improbable but transformative occurrences, remains rare. However, the conditions under which they arise are more favorable than ever. Imagine a gas with an increasing number of molecules confined to the same space. The pressure rises and the molecules bounce off one another more frequently. Similarly, as the density of ideas grows in our interconnected world, the probability of these ideas colliding and combining also increases. The modern convergence of ideas.
In the past, the geographic and social separation of people often meant that ideas developed in isolation. A brilliant idea conceived in Boston might never interact with a similarly groundbreaking idea emerging in Texas. But today, the internet and global communication networks make such connections routine. I could publish an idea online, and within hours, someone across the globe could discover it, refine it, and collaborate with me to create something transformative.
Accession events traditionally result from the convergence of multiple ideas. As the number of ideas in circulation increases and as the speed and ease of connecting those ideas improve, these events are likely to grow more complex and impactful. The sheer volume of ideas in today's world creates a fertile environment for innovation, making the emergence of sophisticated black swan events more probable.
The future of black swans. As our global network continues to expand, the potential for unforeseen, paradigm-shifting events grows. The vast pool of ideas combined with enhanced connectivity ensures that we are rolling the dice more frequently than ever before. While we cannot predict the exact form these black swan events will take, we can anticipate their increasing sophistication and influence.
By understanding the conditions that give rise to these events, we position ourselves to better adapt to and benefit from the unpredictable shifts they bring.
Chapter 6. The risks of accelerated innovation.
One of the significant risks of accelerated innovation is the possibility that individuals and eventually society as a whole may struggle to keep pace. When the rate of change outstrips society's ability to absorb and integrate new ideas, it can lead to instability. Our societal framework, comprising laws, religion, and social norms, is inherently designed to process new ideas at a slower, more deliberate pace. This gradual absorption is what enables society to maintain order and coherence while adapting to change. However, the rapid succession of accession events, each bringing transformative shifts, poses a challenge to this framework. When the pace of societal change becomes overwhelmingly fast, it can erode foundational structures before they have a chance to adapt. This misalignment between the speed of innovation and societal integration creates friction, often manifesting as cultural tensions. The United States, for example, has experienced these tensions in the form of culture wars. These conflicts arise when traditional norms and values clash with the rapid influx of new ideas and technologies. The faster the rate of change, the greater the potential for societal dissonance, highlighting the critical need for balancing innovation with mechanisms that allow society to adapt and thrive in a changing world. Blockbuster's blunder, the risks of ignoring accession events. Companies and individuals who fail to adapt to accession events risk catastrophic failure. In a world of slow, predictable evolution, maintaining the status quo might seem safe. But in an environment where accession events occur with increasing frequency, clinging to the status quo becomes one of the most dangerous strategies imaginable. Rapid change demands rapid adaptation. And one of the most infamous examples of a company that failed to adapt is Blockbuster Video. To be clear, this is not a story of incompetence or foolishness. Blockbuster was led by intelligent, capable business people who were blindsided by the radical shifts in their industry. Their downfall is a case study in how quickly success can erode when the criteria for success undergoes a seismic shift.
Blockbuster's initial success.
Blockbuster began in a fragmented video rental market during the Betamax VHS format wars. When VHS emerged as the dominant standard, Blockbuster consolidated the market by acquiring and replacing smaller independent video stores. Leveraging their size, they secured better deals with movie studios and passed those savings to customers. By 2002, Blockbuster had grown into a $5 billion business, a meteoric rise in just over a decade. Their success, however, became their blind spot. Blockbuster's leadership defined their business as renting VHS cassettes and extrapolated that model into the future. They failed to recognize the true nature of their business, delivering entertainment in the most convenient and efficient way possible. By anchoring their strategy to the VHS format, they limited their vision and missed the technological shifts that would redefine their market. The technological shift. By the late 1990s, the digital revolution was underway. Napster demonstrated the power of distributing digital content, and soon after, similar technologies were applied to movies. Innovations like high-speed internet, digital compression, and increased storage capacity converged to make digital movie distribution feasible. Netflix recognized this shift early, offering both DVD by mail and digital streaming services. Blockbuster, however, remained tethered to their physical stores. They failed to anticipate how digital delivery could transform their industry, even as customers began demanding greater. Convenience, Blockbuster doubled down on their traditional model, focusing on in-store rentals and incremental gains like popcorn and candy sales. This short-term thinking left them vulnerable to the disruptive force of Netflix and other emerging competitors. The consequences of playing it safe. Blockbuster's leadership prioritized incremental improvements over transformational change. They sought 10% gains, a slightly better customer experience, slightly higher sales, instead of pursuing 10x innovations. This approach might sustain a business in a static market, but in a world of rapid change, it's a recipe for obsolescence. In hindsight, Blockbuster had several options to mitigate their decline. They could have, 1, recognized the accession event. By identifying the potential of digital distribution early, they could have pivoted to a Netflix-like model. 2, leveraged their brand. As a well-known industry leader, Blockbuster had the brand. Recognition to compete effectively in the digital space. 3, sold the business. If leadership had acknowledged their inability to compete, they could have sold the company while it still held significant value. Instead, Blockbuster clung to their existing model, allowing Netflix to dominate the digital market. By 2010, just 8 years after their peak, Blockbuster declared bankruptcy. Their stores became relics of a bygone era, while Netflix emerged as the new leader in home entertainment.
Lessons for the future.
Blockbuster's story underscores the dangers of linear thinking in a rapidly changing world. In today's business environment, seeking merely to sweat another 10% out of an existing model is no longer sufficient. Companies must think differently, seeking transformative 10x changes rather than incremental gains. Moreover, accession events are not unique to any one industry. Just as Netflix disrupted Blockbuster, Netflix itself faces growing competition from Hulu, Apple, Amazon, and other streaming platforms. The market is continually evolving, and today's winners must remain vigilant to avoid becoming tomorrow's losers. The broader lesson is clear. Success in a world of accession events requires constant innovation and adaptability. Businesses that fail to embrace change will be replaced by those that do. This cycle of creative destruction is not only inevitable, but essential for societal progress, ensuring that resources are reallocated to ventures with greater potential for growth and innovation.
In the end, the fall of Blockbuster is not just a cautionary tale, it's a reminder of the opportunities that lie in recognizing and adapting to the transformative power of accession events. Chapter 7, The Tyranny of the MBA. Do you have an MBA? If so, you may find this chapter uncomfortable. I contend that MBAs have become more liability than asset, not only to individuals, but to society. Far from fostering adaptability, MBA programs often instill a rigid, know-it-all mindset that suppresses curiosity, encourages groupthink, and clings to outdated data. In a world defined by rapid change and accession events, this mindset is ill-suited for success. The danger of knowing. There is a recurring theme among people and organizations that fail to navigate accession events. The belief that they already know everything. This mindset blinds them to new possibilities, preventing them from questioning the status quo or seeking better solutions. The MBA culture often perpetuates this problem, teaching students what to think instead of how to think. In the modern knowledge economy, asking the right questions is far more valuable than having the right answers. Yet MBAs often graduate believing they have all the answers, an illusion reinforced by the hefty tuition they've paid. The result? A workforce of status quo defenders rather than visionary thinkers ready to disrupt and innovate. The story of the Hawaiian king. Consider the Hawaiian king, a ruler who believes he's at the apex of power in his small world. One day, a strange ship appears on the horizon. Made of metal and steaming without sails, it carries emissaries who inform him that his islands now belong to a far-off monarch. They introduce him to a new god and demand taxes. In a single moment, his reign and his entire way of life comes to an end. The Hawaiian king's downfall illustrates the danger of thinking you have all the answers. Before that ship arrived, he couldn't have imagined a force capable of usurping his power. Similarly, businesses and leaders who cling to knowing are unprepared for the unexpected. Defending the status quo is rarely a winning strategy. Questioning and challenging assumptions, however, is essential for adapting to accession events. The MBA's outdated knowledge. MBAs are often likened to generals fighting the last war. The curriculum is based on data that, while robust when first developed, quickly becomes outdated in a fast-changing world. By the time students graduate, they are armed with insights from yesterday, insights that may be irrelevant for tomorrow. A historical parallel can be drawn to the French after World War I. Believing that trench warfare would define future conflicts, they built the Maginot Line, a series of fortified trenches and gun placements. When World War II came, Germany's Blitzkrieg strategy bypassed these defenses entirely, rendering them useless. Similarly, MBA graduates may find themselves ill-equipped to address modern challenges because their training focuses on old paradigms. The half-life of answers. Answers have a half-life. What is true today may not be true in 40 years or even in 10. Education systems often fail to account for this. Students learn fixed answers instead of developing the skills to question and adapt. For instance, many of us were taught there are 9 planets in the solar system. Today, the correct answer is 8, a change that occurred in 2006, yet many people still cling to outdated knowledge. This rigidity is problematic in a world where facts evolve. Without the ability to question old answers and seek new ones, individuals and organizations risk stagnation and irrelevance. The danger of groupthink. MBA programs and corporate cultures often promote groupthink, creating organizations that reward conformity over innovation. Companies hire individuals with similar backgrounds and perspectives, reinforcing existing norms and discouraging dissent. This homogeneity stifles creativity and limits the organization's ability to respond to change. Groupthink fosters a shallow gene pool of ideas. Instead of seeking transformative 10x improvements, organizations focus on squeezing out incremental 10% gains. While this approach may sustain short-term performance, it leaves companies vulnerable to disruptive accession events.
Shifting the focus from answers to questions. In today's world, knowing the right answers is less important than knowing which questions to ask. The internet already holds a wealth of information. The challenge lies in framing the questions that unlock its potential. Yet our education system, including MBA programs, prioritizes answers over inquiry, leaving graduates ill-prepared for the demands of the modern world.
Institutions like education and religion evolve slowly, often resisting change to preserve consistency. But in a rapidly accelerating world, this resistance to change becomes a liability. Those who fail to adapt quickly are increasingly vulnerable to being swept away by accession events. Learning to adapt.
To thrive in the face of accession events, we must embrace the wisdom of figures like Tolstoy, who wrote, "We can know only that we know nothing, and that is the highest degree of human wisdom." This mindset allows us to remain open to new possibilities, question assumptions, and navigate an ever-changing landscape. History's greatest innovators, Warren Buffett, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Richard Branson, lacked MBAs. What they shared was an ability to think differently, to question rather than conform. Their success underscores the need for adaptability and curiosity in a world where accession events are inevitable. Instead of asking students to memorize answers, perhaps our schools should encourage them to write questions. This simple shift could transform education, fostering a generation of thinkers prepared to tackle the unknown. After all, survival in the modern world depends not on knowing the answers, but on asking the right questions.
Chapter 8, The Scourge of the Consultant. Flaws in education systems and MBA programs often manifest in the archetype of the modern consultant. A consultant is someone who tells you the time using your own watch and then takes the watch as payment. They epitomize groupthink, clinging to the status quo rather than challenging it. Ironically, this is the exact opposite of what a truly valuable consultant should provide. Most consultants and analysts exhibit traits that make them poorly suited to driving meaningful change. Few are willing to make bold statements that might upset their clients, even when such honesty is precisely what the client needs. Instead, they play it safe, offering faint praise. "You're all doing great. It's marvelous." This cowardice ensures they avoid confrontation, but it also stifles the potential for real progress. The problem with consultants often lack the first-hand experience needed to truly understand their client's world. Their advice is typically based on past experiences from other organizations, which may no longer be relevant in a rapidly changing landscape. Like MBAs, they're fighting yesterday's battles, using outdated strategies ill-equipped to navigate today's or tomorrow's challenges. One of the most glaring issues with consultants is the absence of accountability. There are no consequences for being wrong. A simple way to test a consultant's conviction is to ask them to invest their own money in their recommendations. Unsurprisingly, they rarely will. While consultants can occasionally help organizations achieve incremental improvements, they are generally incapable of driving the transformative 10x changes required to thrive in the face of accession events. Their adherence to the status quo blinds them to revolutionary possibilities.
The limits of incremental thinking. Consultants excel at wringing out small gains in productivity, the proverbial 10% improvement. But they fall short when it comes to envisioning the kind of systemic overhaul that leads to exponential progress. This limitation makes them ill-suited for preparing businesses to navigate and capitalize on accession events.
To adapt to a rapidly evolving world, it is better to cultivate a broad perspective. Instead of knowing more and more about less and less, aim to know less and less about more and more. This allows you to step back, see connections across disparate fields, and foster the vision needed for transformative 10x change. Moving beyond the consultant model. To truly prepare your business for the future, consider stepping away from reliance on traditional consultants and analysts. While they may provide value in maintaining the status quo, they rarely possess the mindset or tools necessary for revolutionary change. The ability to see the bigger picture, question assumptions, and embrace bold new approaches is far more valuable in navigating the challenges and opportunities of a rapidly changing world.
Chapter 9, the Aristotle example. In the movie Planet of the Apes, Charlton Heston's character tells Dr. Zaius, "This world is topsy-turvy." Dr. Zaius replies, "It's only topsy-turvy because you presently inhabit its lowest rung." This exchange underscores a harsh truth. Societies are designed to maintain the comfort of those at the top. The status quo exists because those benefiting from it have no incentive to change, and this inertia often extends to individuals and businesses alike. Most people are resistant to change because historically change has been synonymous with chaos or even disaster for the average person. Accession events, those monumental shifts that redefine markets and societies, have a history of wreaking havoc on individuals even as they advance society as a whole. The Luddites and chaotic change. Consider the Luddites, whose rebellion exemplifies the disruption caused by technological innovation. In the late 18th century, James Watt's steam engine enabled factories to install power looms, accelerating textile production by factors of 20 to 50. This obliterated the cottage industry, where individuals crafted textiles at home and earned a decent living. Factory jobs paid less, and workers had to answer to bosses instead of themselves. Outraged, the Luddites smashed the machines they saw as the cause of their misery. The rebellion failed. Many Luddites were executed or deported, and the Industrial Revolution gained momentum. While society benefited, individuals were crushed under the wheels of progress. Musicians, taxis, and other disruptions. A similar upheaval befell professional musicians in the 1930s when talking movies eliminated the need for live orchestras in theaters. Protests ensued, but progress marched on. Later, in the 2010s, taxi drivers around the world protested Uber, only to face the inevitability of an even bigger disruption: self-driving cars. Each of these examples demonstrates that change, especially the kind brought on by accession events, is both inevitable and tumultuous. It destroys old ways of doing things while creating new opportunities for those who adapt. Technological cascades, from looms to printing presses, technological advancements often trigger cascades of change. Arabian looms accelerated textile production, creating a shortage of raw materials, which was solved by the Chinese spinning wheel. This made cloth cheaper, leading to an abundance of linen rags. Johannes Gutenberg's printing press then capitalized on this cheap paper, revolutionizing communication and knowledge dissemination. The printing press even disrupted the Catholic Church. Once indulgences, theological IOUs for sin, could be mass-produced, their cost plummeted. Martin Luther's critique of the Church's profit motives went viral thanks to the printing press, sparking the Reformation and reshaping European history. The perils of dogma. Change often challenges deeply held beliefs. Aristotle's physics, for instance, held sway for centuries, asserting that projectiles travel in straight lines before dropping vertically. This view worked until cannons came along, requiring a more accurate understanding of parabolas to calculate trajectories. Those who clung to Aristotle's outdated ideas were at a distinct disadvantage. The same dynamic applies to businesses. Many continue outdated practices without questioning their relevance. Take the classic anecdote of the family that cuts their Thanksgiving ham in half because it's tradition.
Only later does it emerge that the original reason was simply that great-grandma's oven was too small. Similarly, businesses often perpetuate practices long after their original purpose has faded.
The danger of linear thinking.
Linear thinking assumes that small improvements will yield proportional results. For instance, a company may pay a top salesperson $100,000 quarterly to bring in $10 million in business without questioning whether that revenue would occur regardless. Fear of upsetting the status quo often prevents businesses from re-evaluating such assumptions, even when the costs climb dangerously close to the break-even point. Accession events render linear thinking not just ineffective, but perilous. As the criteria for success change, sticking to old models can accelerate failure. Blockbuster's strategy of opening more stores as digital delivery gained traction is a prime example of investing in the wrong direction.
Embracing a new way of thinking.
Aristotle's outdated physics couldn't account for cannon fire. Similarly, businesses clinging to outdated paradigms will struggle in a world defined by exponential change. The key to survival lies in adopting new frameworks and asking fundamental questions. Why are we doing this? Is this approach still relevant? Visionaries who think differently can uncover innovative solutions. For instance, understanding the true nature of the solar system allowed humanity to develop satellite technology. By shedding outdated beliefs, we open ourselves to new possibilities and pave the way for transformative progress. In a rapidly evolving world, the ability to question assumptions and adapt to change is not just advantageous, it's essential. Chapter 8, The Scourge of the Consultant. Flaws in education systems and MBA programs often manifest in the archetype of the modern consultant. A consultant is someone who tells you the time using your own watch and then takes the watch as payment. They epitomize groupthink, clinging to the status quo rather than challenging it. Ironically, this is the exact opposite of what a truly valuable consultant should provide.
Most consultants and analysts exhibit traits that make them poorly suited to driving meaningful change. Few are willing to make bold statements that might upset their clients, even when such honesty is precisely what the client needs. Instead, they play it safe, offering faint praise. You're all doing great. It's marvelous. This cowardice ensures they avoid confrontation, but it also stifles the potential for real progress. The problem with consultants.
Consultants often lack the first-hand experience needed to truly understand their client's world. Their advice is typically based on past experiences from other organizations, which may no longer be relevant in a rapidly changing landscape. Like MBAs, they're fighting yesterday's battles, using outdated strategies ill-equipped to navigate today's or tomorrow's challenges.
One of the most glaring issues with consultants is the absence of accountability. There are no consequences for being wrong. A simple way to test a consultant's conviction is to ask them to invest their own money in their recommendations. Unsurprisingly, they rarely will. While consultants can occasionally help organizations achieve incremental improvements, they are generally incapable of driving the transformative 10x changes required to thrive in the face of accession events. Their adherence to the status quo blinds them to revolutionary possibilities.
The limits of incremental thinking. Consultants excel at wringing out small gains in productivity, the proverbial 10% improvement. But they fall short when it comes to envisioning the kind of systemic overhaul that leads to exponential progress. This limitation makes them ill-suited for preparing businesses to navigate and capitalize on accession events.
To adapt to a rapidly evolving world, it is better to cultivate a broad perspective. Instead of knowing more and more about less and less, aim to know less and less about more and more. This allows you to step back, see connections across disparate fields, and foster the vision needed for transformative 10x change. Moving beyond the consultant model. To truly prepare your business for the future, consider stepping away from reliance on traditional consultants and analysts. While they may provide value in maintaining the status quo, they rarely possess the mindset or tools necessary for revolutionary change. The ability to see the bigger picture, question assumptions, and embrace bold new approaches is far more valuable in navigating the challenges and opportunities of a rapidly changing world.
Chapter 9, the Aristotle example. In the movie Planet of the Apes, Charlton Heston's character tells Dr. Zaius, "This world is topsy-turvy." Dr. Zaius replies, "It's only topsy-turvy because you presently inhabit its lowest rung." This exchange underscores a harsh truth. Societies are designed to maintain the comfort of those at the top. The status quo exists because those benefiting from it have no incentive to change. And this inertia often extends to individuals and businesses alike. Most people are resistant to change because historically change has been synonymous with chaos or even disaster for the average person. Accession events, those monumental shifts that redefine markets and societies, have a history of wreaking havoc on individuals even as they advance society as a whole. The Luddites and chaotic change. Consider the Luddites, whose rebellion exemplifies the disruption caused by technological innovation. In the late 18th century, James Watt's steam engine enabled factories to install power looms, accelerating textile production by factors of 20 to 50. This obliterated the cottage industry, where individuals crafted textiles at home and earned a decent living. Factory jobs paid less, and workers had to answer to bosses instead of themselves. Outraged, the Luddites smashed the machines they saw as the cause of their misery. The rebellion failed. Many Luddites were executed or deported, and the Industrial Revolution gained momentum. While society benefited, individuals were crushed under the wheels of progress. Musicians, taxis, and other disruptions. A similar upheaval befell professional musicians in the 1930s when talking movies eliminated the need for live orchestras in theatres. Protests ensued, but progress marched on. Later, in the 2010s, taxi drivers around the world protested Uber, only to face the inevitability of an even bigger disruption: self-driving cars. Each of these examples demonstrates that change, especially the kind brought on by accession events, is both inevitable and tumultuous. It destroys old ways of doing things while creating new opportunities for those who adapt. Technological cascades, from looms to printing presses, technological advancements often trigger cascades of change. Arabian looms accelerated textile production, creating a shortage of raw materials, which was solved by the Chinese spinning wheel. This made cloth cheaper, leading to an abundance of linen rags. Johannes Gutenberg's printing press then capitalized on this cheap paper, revolutionizing communication and knowledge dissemination. The printing press even disrupted the Catholic Church. Once indulgences, theological IOUs for sin, could be mass-produced, their cost plummeted. Martin Luther's critique of the Church's profit motives went viral thanks to the printing press, sparking the Reformation and reshaping European history. The perils of dogma. Change often challenges deeply held beliefs. Aristotle's physics, for instance, held sway for centuries, asserting that projectiles travel in straight lines before dropping vertically. This view worked until cannons came along, requiring a more accurate understanding of parabolas to calculate trajectories. Those who clung to Aristotle's outdated ideas were at a distinct disadvantage.
The same dynamic applies to businesses. Many continue outdated practices without questioning their relevance. Take the classic anecdote of the family that cuts their Thanksgiving ham in half because it's tradition. Only later does it emerge that the original reason was simply that great-grandma's oven was too small. Similarly, businesses often perpetuate practices long after their original purpose has faded.
The danger of linear thinking.
Linear thinking assumes that small improvements will yield proportional results. For instance, A company may pay a top salesperson $100,000 quarterly to bring in $10 million in business without questioning whether that revenue would occur regardless. Fear of upsetting the status quo often prevents businesses from re-evaluating such assumptions, even when the costs climb dangerously close to the break-even point. Accession events render linear thinking not just ineffective, but perilous. As the criteria for success change, sticking to old models can accelerate failure. Blockbuster's strategy of opening more stores as digital delivery gained traction is a prime example of investing in the wrong direction.